Hello folks, it's Chris in Arena Recording Studio. Today I'm going to be talking about a piece of equipment, a piece of hardware that I bought for the studio on a little bit of a whim really, just to try it out because I'd heard so many reviews about it. And it's the Klark Teknik 1176. Is it the KT76 or the 76KT? It's the 1176 clone anyway. And we all know all about 1176s, don't we? You know, everybody wants those. And I've used them over the years, and I've got to be totally honest, this is 2 years to the month since I bought this piece of equipment. And my take on this really, and this isn't one of these comparison videos, compare this, compare that, it's not. It's literally just my experience of using this piece of kit every single day for the last 2 years. And I think I paid, I can't remember, but it was about less than £200 maybe, and I've seen them for kind of £130, £140 now. I've paid more, I do remember I paid more for plug-in versions of this over the years. And I've got to be totally honest, I have had a couple of very tiny, minuscule issues with this piece of equipment. But in the grand scheme of things, it was nothing. It was just a little bit of crackliness on the pots. Now, I'm not sure whether that is cheap parts involved with this or just a little bit of dust or bad contact that's come over the course of a few months on the studio, but needless to say, it was a really easy fix. It was just some contact cleaner, quick spray up, little bit of rotation, and it's good to go, and it's been sweet as a nut since. So those are the only downsides I've had to this. Now in this studio, you know, you might see in the background that there's an old kind of Mackie desk in here, which is a budget thing really, and I don't, you know, I've worked on high-end stuff over the years in various studios, and to be honest, I don't rely on this Mackie desk. I don't mix on it anymore. I just use it. It's just a glorified plug-in patch bay for me. Everything that I've got in the studio is patched into that with patch bays and all sorts of stuff. So I've got all these different combinations that I can use. Now, I've used this Klark KT 76 KT in various forms on this, and it's patched in so that I can drop it onto any channel I want if I'm recording. I actually don't even use the preamps on this desk, if I'm being truthful. I have over the years, you know, and I've had some great results from it. But like I say, it's just a massive patch bay, all this for me now. I actually use the UAD preamps now and the UAD EQs, all this kind of stuff. But when it comes to compressors, I'm a little bit of a stickler for that. I do like to use the hardware stuff. And this has become a regular thing that I've patched it in. I've used it on kicks, snares, vocals, bass guitars. I've used it when I mix. You know, I use on like a hybrid system in the studio with hardware and software. And I can honestly say it's probably better than any of the plugins of these emulations of the 1176s I've got, and I've paid some serious money for these over the years, don't get me wrong. You know, the UAD stuff is great and it's brilliant, it's not cheap, but I do think the hardware version of this Klark Teknik is very much more forgiving to use than a hardware version of it. It just, clinically, it feels more transparent, unnoticeable is probably the way to go, I would say, rather than a plugin. I find the plugins can be a little bit harsh at times, whereas this just seems a lot smoother and a lot more cohesive in the mix. So I've tracked with it and I mix with it, and I normally pop it on the vocal tracks when I'm actually mixing, if I'm being truthful. And then sometimes I'll even slap a UAD LA2A on there as well. So I'm using a combination of hardware and software when I'm mixing things nowadays. And I'm totally, for the money, I just think it's one of the best things that I've ever bought in the studio. I'm even looking that if I can get them at this budget price, I would probably get 2 or 3 and use them on kick, snare and bass, more so when I'm tracking bands and on the kit and all this kind of stuff, because for that price, it works out probably more cost effective than getting a plug-in and using it on the inserts of all the Apollo stuff that I run in the studio. So I'm kind of very much a fan of it, and I just feel that dialing in on the hardware, and you've probably heard this before, but it just feels more real in a way when I'm mixing that way. And I tend to not look at the needles as much. I tend to listen more when I'm mixing with hardware rather than visually mixing, which is not a great thing to do. You've got to depend on these things all the time. So would I score it? What would I score this out of 10? Purely just for the crackly pots, I'm going to say maybe an 8 or a 9. Anything without the crackly pots. And it'd be interesting to see whether anybody else has had a similar issue with this. It would probably have been a 9.5 or even a 10 because it's become very versatile. And this is what I'm a big fan of in the studio nowadays, is something that kind of becomes a bit of a game changer that doesn't cost a fortune. You know, there's a lot of home studio recorders out there and you're all in a similar position where you're all on tight budgets. You don't want to be saving up for tens of thousands of dollars worth of kit because really, take it from me, it doesn't make that much difference. You know, your room is more important a lot of the time than what you're actually purchasing. So spend your money on getting your room sorted and decent acoustic treatment rather than on £5,000-10,000 worth of preamps and compressors and EQs and all this kind of stuff. You'll see far better results like that. But once you get sorted, you can actually look at the budget stuff a little bit more. And again, like I say, an 8.5, 9 out of 10 all day long for the Klark Teknik 1176 clone for me. Like I said, I've used it on everything and I'm very, very pleased. I do think if you drive it a little bit hard, it gets a little bit noisy on certain sources. But if you understand that, then you know what to not put it on and what to put it on. But again, going back to the crackly pots, it was a really 2-minute fix, a little bit of contact cleaner, and it was good to go. And I've not had the issue since. And that was probably, I would say, 8 or 9 months ago. So it was an easy fix and it's not something that's recurred. So I'm saying that it's just possibly dodgy connections maybe, or poorer pots. And if it's something that I have to do maybe once a year as a little bit of a maintenance job, I'll be a happy man. So that's my thoughts on this Klark Teknik thing. And it's even got me thinking about, I might look at this LA2A version that they do at some point. And they also do a Pultec EQ kind of bit of kit, which I'm curious to just get in if it doesn't break the bank and maybe review it and see how it all pans out. But for me, very, very pleased with it. Can't fault it really. And it's my go-to when I'm looking for an 1176 rather than any of the plug-in versions that I've got from all the other plug-in providers out there in this wonderful world of music. So as always from me, Chris, please give the thumbs up to this video and a like and a share. It does make my day and it helps me. And also comments are great on this because, you know, we all have different opinions on things. And if some of you have had issues with this piece of kit, put it in the comments below and let me know, and then I can watch out for the same sort of things happening with mine. And hopefully this has been some use to somebody that's maybe got a similar issue with the crackly pots and it's become unusable. Just get yourself some good contact cleaner, whip it apart, it's a 5-minute job if that, give it a spray and you're good to go. Okay, so again, thanks for watching. As always, stay safe, stay well, and I'll see you very soon.